Hi, folks. Steve Urban here. Today's episode of the Riderflex podcast is sponsored by Marketing 360. My good friend JB Kellogg and his team do such a fantastic job for us and so many other companies. Marketing 360 is the number one platform for small business, and it's everything you need to grow your business. If you need marketing support, I really encourage you to contact them at marketing360.com/Riderflex, and we'll add that link to the description of this episode for easy reference. On today's episode of the Riderflex podcast, we have guest Brad Weber. He's the founder and CEO of Inspiring Apps. They build beautiful and engaging apps that inspire how people live, work, and play. Brad Weber on the Riderflex podcast. Brad, how's it going?
Great. How are you today?
I'm hanging in there. We're recording this June 9th, 2020. So not sure when the listeners will hear it, but how about that weird cold front we had last night in Colorado late on the June 8th? I'm like, what the heck? I had to take my little air conditioner out of the window and all kinds of stuff.
After weeks in the 70s and 80s, somebody on our team made the mistake of saying, "Oh, there's no way it'll snow again." And then we got close. It was down into the low 40s.
Right. And I'm a big mountain/camper guy. I like to go up kind of high in the mountains in the summertime, and some of the trails and the areas that I like to disperse camp, I was waiting for them to open because some of them still had some snowpack. And now it's going to be even longer before they open because we got some more snow up there.
Right. Crazy.
Oh, wow. I appreciate you being on the show. Thank you, sir. Are you in Denver?
I'm in Boulder today.
In Boulder? Okay. Very good. Well, by the way, the weather's nicer today. A little bit nicer.
Great.
Okay. Tell the listeners a little about yourself personally before we get, into your career and your business. Maybe where you grew up, but some family stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I grew up in St. Louis. I spent my formative years there before venturing out to Southern California, where I earned a bachelor's degree in business and played some water polo. And
did you go on scholarship?
Not scholarship. No, the scholarships are for football. There are very few scholarships to be had in other sports, but it was fun to play and still be involved.
Very nice.
And it was great to be in Southern California as a Midwestern guy. I had a fantastic time out there while I was a student, and then a little bit after I graduated as well. And then I had a longing to get to the mountains, so moved to Boulder and earned an MBA. And now that's been a lot of years. I've lived in Colorado longer than anywhere else at this point.
So what was that like the first time you went to Southern California from St. Louis? Were you like, holy crap, I didn't know these types of places existed?
It was pretty eye-opening. I felt like sometimes driving to friends' houses that still considered themselves residents of LA, I felt like I crossed the entire state of Missouri in the amount of time that it took us to just cross the city.
Right.
It's pretty big.
Now you played water polo. Does that mean you're tall? Are you a big guy?
Well, gosh, if you look at water polo players today, I'm pretty puny, but
okay.
At the time I was 6'4", now shrinking a bit, but
because water polo guys are usually 6'4", 6'7", like huge guys. That's why I was asking.
Pretty monstrous.
What made? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that covers the school side, but family-wise, I have a wife and two great girls at home as well, and we're all enjoying the Colorado lifestyle, but also enjoy sailing when we can, which gets us back to coasts.
Oh, really? Wow. Now, I don't meet a lot of people that live in Colorado that say they enjoy sailing. That matter of fact, you might be the first because. Do you have a boat or a slip or something out in Southern California, or where do you go?
I do not. We charter when we are looking for a boat now to go somewhere, but I would have thought the same thing, that landlocked Colorado does not have many sailors. But last spring break, we took a family trip to the British Virgin Islands, and boat owners and charterers enjoy flying flags on their boat that are meaningful to them. And I would say during that spring break week, we saw more Colorado flags than anything else. It was
Interesting.
crazy. Yeah.
Interesting. What were you like? Hey, I'm over here. Were you like, that's pretty cool?
I almost would have preferred that it be a little more exotic and not be reminded of home quite so frequently, but it was something that was a little charming about it as well.
Do you know how many guys I've met that grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, went to the USC and love sailing and live in Colorado? None.
This guy?
That is unique. I appreciate you sharing that with me. How old are your daughter? How old are the daughters?
16 and 11.
It's fun times at your house now.
They're great. Yes.
Okay, good. No, there's no rebellion happening. No major.
Not yet. I've been told to brace for it, but they've been fantastic so far.
Well, if you haven't seen any from your 16-year-old yet, you're doing pretty good.
Count my blessings, yes.
Were you just you growing up, brothers, sisters? What was the scoop with your family back in St. Louis?
I have a very accomplished sister who is an orthopedic oncologist in Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
She leads a department at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital, and just finished her tenure as the first female president of the American Association of Orthopedic Surgeons.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Ooh, okay. What'd your mom and dad do?
My mom was a lifelong volunteer. She was a social worker out of school and found opportunities primarily in our school district to volunteer when my sister and I were growing up. And my dad had a long career in corporate America in a defense agency. He worked for McDonnell Douglas back in the time. Since been purchased by Boeing, but he worked there for 30 plus years into retirement.
Very good. I was wondering where the entrepreneurial bug came from. That's why I asked about the parents. I didn't know if somebody in your family was an entrepreneur. Where do you think you got that?
Not from my parents.
Right?
They were a little nervous about it at first, but they exposed me to it a little bit, I suppose. As a kid, I mean, I had a lot of odd jobs, lifeguard and some other things. But when I was early in high school, they joined with a few of their friends. 3-4 families got together and opened up a frozen custard stand in St. Louis. And that was all the rage back in the day. And it turned out to be a nice family business that allowed me and all of the other kids of these families that were about the same age and our friends from high school to have jobs. And it was fun. So I did learn a little bit about management and having responsibility and having a good time at work too. That was pretty fun. The big time risks of entrepreneurship, I had to decide to take on myself.
Well, let's talk about your career a little bit. Before you started your business, walk us through a little bit of your early career and how you decided to venture out.
Sure. So first job out of the MBA program was with one of the big 6 consulting firms at the time. I don't actually know how many are left and if people even say big something anymore, but that's what we called them at the time. I was in Denver specializing in the telecom industry, and it was an exciting time for telecom in that Quest was moving to town, and none of the baby bells were needing to innovate. And so it was a great opportunity for agencies like ours, but the reality was that it was also a feeding frenzy. And so there was a great deal of competition, and I spent more time writing proposals than I did writing code, which is what I would have enjoyed more at the time. And so after a few years of that, I just grew frustrated because I wasn't delivering something that people use. And that's really important to me. Mm-hmm. So I decided to venture out on my own and build, at the time, desktop applications for small businesses. And
now, did you just quit? Did you just like, I'm going to quit my job and That walk me through that moment right there. Now,
No,
were you
no.
married? Were you married with kids, or walk us through that how that transition period right there? Because I think a lot of people that listen to our show, they're aspiring entrepreneurs, and they're always like, okay, well, hold on a minute now. Well, how'd you do that? Did you have some money saved up? Did you get clients and then you quit? Walk us through that.
B, yes. So
Okay.
um, it's, let's see, maybe back up to a couple of questions I missed in there. So yes, I
Sorry.
was married. No, I did not have kids. Yes, I was already working on the side um,
Okay.
to improve my skills and really for no pay, just help friends in their businesses to try to build little applications that they could use.
Ah.
And so I did leave thinking that I had enough clients, but I did not. So went back to a full-time job. I don't remember how long that first stint lasted,
Mm,
but maintained what I was trying to do with my own venture as I picked up another job,
okay.
and then tried again and found that I still didn't have quite enough to make a living. So I went back for my third full-time job with somebody else, and that
Interesting.
didn't last long at all because I was laid off after a few months. But um, it turned out to be just the right amount of time, and after that, just accelerated a bit more, a little extra hustle, and managed to find enough clients. And for a dozen years, even before I started Inspiring Apps, I was an independent developer and was just building applications on my own. I would occasionally partner with other independent developers on projects if things got larger, but for the most part, I was a one-man shop for 12 years.
Now, when you had to go back to being an employee after you had tried it once or twice, when you went back, so you went back twice, did you just were you just like, oh God, this no, I want to
uh,
do I want to do my own thing. I mean, I got to pay the mortgage, but I really
yeah,
just
yeah, I couldn't beat myself up too much about it. I mean, you got to face the reality of, like you said, the mortgage and other obligations. So it was fine. I still knew what the long-term plan was and what that goal was. So kept focused on that while I was doing it, and it made it more tolerable. But neither one of them lasted a year even. So
uh,
it was a small amount, a small price to pay, I guess,
now on the
for
one where you got
stability.
right, the one where you got laid off, and you're like, okay, I'm going to try it a third time. Was your wife like, oh, okay, God, here we go? Like, no, please, just go get a job. What was she saying? What was the conversation like at home? I'm just,
She's always been very supportive.
she has. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, bless her heart. That's good.
Yep.
It takes that. If your spouse or your
It
partner or
is.
whoever it is in your life, they've got to support you if you're going to do this entrepreneurial thing.
Yes. It is a joint venture, whether you actually partner in the business or not.
I remember the first time I told my wife that I was going to just quit my consulting gig because I had started Riderflex just as an independent consultant, but hadn't really made it a recruiting firm or partnered with anybody. Probably similar to what you did. And I remember telling her, I'm like, listen, I'm gonna make Riderflex a full blown recruiting firm, and I'm gonna stop working for other companies as a consultant. And I'll never forget the first question she asked. She goes, well, how much is that going to pay us next year? I said, I don't know for sure.
I wondered if you would hit your projection.
Yeah. Oh man. So, okay. So interesting story. And I think that's really good for the listeners to understand. You were working a job. You started some stuff on the side, which a lot of people do. You thought you kind of had enough going, quit your job. You didn't, had to go back, but you tried it a couple of times. I really admire that. And I think that's important for the listeners. Just because the first, swing at the ball doesn't connect doesn't mean you shouldn't swing again. And you kept going.
It's true.
And so for almost 12 years, it was just you. And like you said, you partnered with some people, but you're like, you didn't have this plan to build a brand or start a company with a bunch of employees necessarily. I don't guess.
No, that came, gosh, I would guess probably around the 8-year mark. I started getting the itch.
Okay.
And so that'll tell you how long it took me to make that leap to
Right.
found a new company and try to grow a team. Um, I got some help from a coach and thought a lot about it. But I tell you, finding the right person to partner with at the beginning, and then ultimately finding the first employee, those are some terrifying moments in the business history.
Right. Did you bring on a partner to have like a co-founder with Inspiring Apps? Is that how it worked at first?
I did. When I was, despite the fact that I developed things independently for so long by myself, I still felt like if I needed to shore up something in the business, it was the technical capabilities.
Okay.
So I found someone
Uh-huh.
who was even more experienced than I in terms of software development, and so we started it together. Uh, Ultimately, ended up not lasting terribly long. It didn't end up being a good fit um, professionally or for the company, but it was a good way to start. I think it made sense.
What are the lessons there for the listeners? Take more time in vetting your co-founder, or make sure your co-founder and yourself have more personality traits in common. What are some things you would say for that from that experience?
Let's see. I have many lessons to have learned from that. I will start with the tack that would have saved me some time and anguish would be to have taken more stock in myself at the time,
Okay.
been more confident in my own abilities to continue to deliver um, what I've been doing for so long. But I think the decision to take on a partner was more out of self-doubt at the time that turned out not to be founded. I was able to do okay on my own. Um, I think I think you can only vet someone so much. I mean, I felt like we had a lot in common. Um, when my wife and I were entertaining marriage, we went through a process of learning a lot, a guided process of learning about financial priorities and how we feel about faith and kids and professional careers and things like that. And so if there's not already, and I imagine there is, perhaps a resource like that for potential business co-founders would be would be good.
Did that cost you because you had to buy out his equity when he left?
It was a short-term expense for a long-term gain.
Okay, very good. And then how many? Okay, so that lasted what, a year? That co-founder relationship?
No, it was actually several years. I mean,
Okay,
maybe
okay,
3 or 4 years, something like that.
okay. And then when that ended, how big was the company then with employee count and revenue and things like that?
I don't know the revenue number, and I'm going to get close on employees. I would guess we were probably uh, 16-ish employees
Okay,
and a handful more contractors.
okay,
We
okay.
were not in the same physical location. It's not that far apart. You're familiar with Colorado.
Hmm.
He was located in Fort Collins, and I was in Boulder. So uh, it may be silly, but we had two offices in the same state, only about 40 minutes from one another. And that actually made for perhaps a more clean split. Not only were we able to share clients or in an equitable way, but also had an easy way to divide employees as well. The people in Fort Collins stuck with him, and the people in Boulder stuck with me, and so we just continued parted ways like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, give us the elevator pitch now for Inspiring Apps as it stands today. Tell us
As it
about
stands
yeah,
today,
go for it.
inspiring apps. Let's see, we build award-winning custom web and mobile apps for startups and some of the largest brands in the world. Um, we design and build those applications. We've been doing so for almost 13 years now. We've got an office still in Boulder and one in Austin, Texas as well.
Huh.
And now, thanks to the pandemic, we are actually spreading to many other locations as employees are finding that they want to be closer to family and maybe check out new areas of the country. So historically, we've been the one-stop shop that you would come to if you're a startup to have us build the product that you are then going to build a business around, if it happens to be a technology product. Or if you're a large corporation, we're either building something to help your employees. It might be a custom app that's only used internally within an organization.
Okay.
Or we may also build a product that you are taking to the marketplace, just with much more muscle behind it from a large organization. And as I said, we've been doing that for almost 13 years. So we've amassed a great deal of skill and experience over that time. So we are just this year expanding our offering for the first time to offer pure consulting services as well.
Ah. Oh, good.
So I know that there are a lot of companies out there that prefer to do their work in-house for app development, for instance.
I see.
But they may still benefit from the experience we have building hundreds of apps over the years. And so, rather than committing to bringing us in and completing your project for you, at the executive level, we can come in and help you analyze a project, help you understand what's possible, what the risks are. Our designers can come in and work hand in hand with your designers to understand the latest trends and best practices. And then our developers, especially in light of the fact that many technology conferences were canceled this year, that people count on to keep their skills sharp. Mm-hmm. We can offer some tailored, really less training and more mentorship for in-house developers at some of the larger organizations.
I see. Okay. And how many employees today?
We are about 20 today.
20? Okay. And what size is the business revenue? I know it's a private company. Do you want to give us a ballpark? Do you want to share anything there?
Not a specific number. I will just say that we've been profitable and cash flow positive for a long time.
Oh, so congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a healthy organization.
Cash flow positive, profitable. You know how many business owners listening to this episode wish they could say that?
It wasn't always the case. And that's, it sure felt good when we got to that point and were able to sustain it. In those early years, it's tough when perhaps neither of those things are true, not profitable or cash flow positive. Those are some times when you got to dig deep.
And you bootstrapped it right from the beginning. I mean, it was a service business basically that you bootstrapped on your own by taking the gamble and the risk to just do the consulting work. I'm assuming.
That is true. So it was there was kind of a trajectory. It was immediately profitable because I brought all of my prior business clients into Inspiring Apps, and then I made it not profitable by making some really poor business decisions early on. Took one loan over the years. Thanks, Dad, if you're watching this. Paid him back quickly, and have since not needed to take any sort of loans or outside funding.
Good for you, my man. Never had to raise cash, or never had to give away a bunch of equity. None of that.
No, I know that many of our clients, especially startup clients, struggle with that, and I sympathize, but I have not walked in those shoes. So I don't know just how hard that is, but watching from the outside, it's challenging.
You've also selected to be smaller and profitable, because I'm sure that you've talked to friends or you've been at social gatherings where they're like, oh, you should blow this thing up, Brad. You should take out some cash and put it in marketing, hire some more salespeople and just blow this thing up, right? I'm sure over the years, there's been many of those conversations where people nudging you with that advice, and you're like, hey, listen, I'm good with the lifestyle business. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a good size. So it's important to me. Well, there are many things that are important to me, but I want to feel good about the work that we're doing. And from what I've observed of other companies, as they grow, they have to make some sacrifices. I mean, we're at 20 people. I can honestly say that we have a very solid team of A players. I don't think that I could assemble a team of 200 A players. So I don't, I just don't know how to manage a group where you have a mix of A to C players,
Yeah.
and you're still producing A level output. So I feel better about staying small, working with a really solid team to produce consistently good results.
This is good information for the listeners. It is okay to run a small, profitable business where you deliver excellent work and have a great reputation. And that can be a really good life for you as an entrepreneur. It's not all like you see in the movies where, okay, I have a an app idea and I'm going to borrow $10 million from a VC firm and then we're going to do this and we're going to sell it. We're all going to be billionaires. Like, I mean, the chances of that happening are so tiny, right? You don't have to do it that way. It is okay to just have a very successful small business that's profitable, and it can produce a very good life for you. Right? I mean, happiness is not necessarily borrowing money from VC and trying to sell a company for $1 billion, and that's the only way you're happy. That's just not reality for most people.
Yeah, there was, let's see, I think Techstars worked with Bloomberg TV years ago to produce a little series about the Techstars experience. And I remember one of the quotes, and now I can't remember whether it was the founder or one of the VCs, but said that it shouldn't be something to celebrate that you've just borrowed $10 million. Like that should be one of the most terrifying days of your life.
Right. Right.
And it's hard. I mean, you're right. It gets glorified in popular press and in the media that the Zuckerbergs and others who come in with nothing and end up with billions. It makes for a fantastic story. But so do the musicians that get airplay on the radio. But at the same time, there are millions and millions and millions of talented musicians out there that are not making a living at their art. So it's tough to be one of the few that make it. And so I'm very happy where we are.
The other interesting thing that you mentioned, you didn't say the word control, but if it's small enough, you have your hands on stuff, right? And you don't lose control of the quality of work being delivered. A friend of mine asked me one time, we were sitting on the back porch and he said, well, what scares you the most? And I said, quite frankly, what scares me the most is the bigger we get, the more recruiters I have to have on the team. And that just, every time we hire a new recruiter, it constantly puts the reputation at risk. And because it's just more recruiters doing the work for Riderflex that we built. And that's the one thing I'm scared to death of is handing that responsibility to a complete stranger that joins my team and go, okay, here's the referrals and reviews and references and reputation that we built over the last several years that I killed myself to build. Here you go. Here's my reputation. Go service a new client and hope that they don't blow it up. I mean, that's scary, right?
It is. Yeah. And that's interesting. You say control, and
yeah,
while I nod in affirmation, it's not the kind of micromanagement.
Right. Yeah, understood. Yep.
I guess as the opposite of being out of control, I think that makes a lot of sense. And if I go back, maybe this would be similar to your story, but if I go back to the time that was the least profitable and the most anguish-inducing for me in the company is when I thought that we could minimize risk by using an all-contractor team. And I figured, there's risk in hiring full-time employees because you got to keep them on and you got to cover benefits and, now you're obligated. You better make a good decision because letting them go is challenging and there are legal ramifications around that. So I thought, wouldn't it just be easier to have all contractors? And so, gosh, within the first 2 or 3 years, maybe at the most, we had swelled to 30 people.
Ooh.
And I'm not sure that any of them, other than me and my co-founder, were employees of the company. And the quality was terrible. We couldn't deliver things on time. And the people who were doing the work didn't feel any obligation to maintain the reputation of the company. They're interested in their own reputation as contractors, perhaps, but didn't really care
Right.
as much about inspiring apps. So we made a very quick change, like around the 5-year mark, where we just stopped working with contractors altogether. We now have an entirely employee team. And so the control doesn't come from me looking over people's shoulder constantly to make sure that they're doing the right thing. It's investing in people over years and years so that they understand, without me being present, they know what the right thing to do as an Inspiring Apps employee is, in different situations. And so it's much more comforting now to have that team that I can count on.
Really good stuff. Really good stuff. I appreciate you sharing that. The one other tip I would say for the listeners is even if you aren't ready to take the risk of W-2 employees, there's a couple of other things you can do too. You can have some sort of vesting equity play for people, even if they're 1099, or to get them to buy in to be maybe small equity holders. And there's some different things you can do, but the point that you're making is, if they're not all in, they're going to deliver crappy work, right? And then the reputation. And boy, in today's world with reviews and things like that, man, if you deliver bad work as a service provider, you're dead in the water before you even start.
Yeah, that's tough.
What was your scariest moment? Did you ever have one of those? Well, you probably had several, but do you want to share a moment where you woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and you're in a sweat and you're like walking around in the living room having a heart attack thinking, oh my God, what is this going to work? Did you ever have any of those?
Yes. I'm searching for the one that I want to share out of the perhaps many over the years. But let's see, the financial challenges are scary, or were scary for me for sure. And so going from what at the time was probably close to a 15-year track record of just a profitable business to see that we were losing money. And keep in mind that the more people you add to that problem, the faster you're going to lose money. So I felt like I had just thrown fuel on a terrible fire. And so it wasn't just one day that I woke up fretting, but like, how the heck are we going to get out of this? And fortunately, it didn't take as long as I feared it would. And there were definitely times when I thought maybe it'd be better just to cut my losses and go back to being a W-2 employee and pay off debt for the next 10 years. But I'm really glad I didn't.
Did you use money? Did you use equity from your home and different things over the years to stretch cash flow?
Not home equity per se, but I definitely had to put savings into the business in some years when there wasn't enough revenue to cover payroll. But it was rare for sure.
I like if for any business owner that can relate to this next story, I like it when you're having to talk your spouse into pulling personal savings out to stretch payroll over the next few months. And right as that's happening, you're walking through the break room and you hear an employee complaining to another employee about the type of coffee that's in the break room.
That is the challenge. I don't know if watching this podcast, if some of my team members will find that as a surprise. I feel like it's not that I sugarcoat everything, but one of the burdens that I feel is my responsibility to take on is to smooth out the ups and downs for the rest of the team and shelter from some of the things that are really uncomfortable.
And that's another interesting topic, right? We could probably do an entire episode just on that is how much to share, right? I think business owners and CEOs, I struggled with it. You want to share, as I always wanted to share as much as possible, but I was also shielding and protecting them from certain things because I didn't want them to panic or over worry, and I didn't want to share things with them that would only scare them to death that they couldn't do anything about anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so, there's another interesting topic is how much to share. It's a balancing act, but because you want them to be on the team, you want them to be comfortable. So
exactly, they didn't sign up for this. I mean, they want to be part of an exciting team. They want to solve interesting problems for our clients. They want to be challenged. They want to be respected, but they want a paycheck. And I totally respect that. And I want them to feel confident that paycheck is still coming. And so I've definitely shared bad news over the years, but have always had a solid plan to follow that as well. So here's what's happening, and here's how we're going to get through it. And for 13 years, we've gotten through it.
The interesting thing about those the night sweats you mentioned, I think those are easier to get past when you're a little bit younger. They get more stressful if it happens to you after you're 55 or you're mid 50s or older. I think then when they happen, you're like, okay, so let's see, if the business fails, I'm 56 years old, nobody's going to want to hire me because I'm already over the, and then you start.
And you have less time to make up the gap. So
right.
if I stopped now with a huge pile of debt, then it'd be tougher for me to recover than it was 15 years ago or a dozen years ago or whatever.
Right. And all the 50-year-olds listening to this episode can relate, right? Because I know they've thought some of the same things. But you know what I tell myself when I, every once in a while when we'll have a scary moment or something, as I get old, because I'm 53, and I just think to myself, what's the worst case scenario, right? That you didn't try anything. I think it'd be a lot worse if I was 68 and having a beer with a friend at a bar and complaining that I never tried it. I don't want to do that.
Right. And now you haven't. Here you are.
That's right. Here we are. Here we are. Yeah, here we are. Well, I had a guest on the show recently, and I loved her line. She goes, starting a business is just really awful. She was so classic. But hey, you know what? Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's been I wouldn't change it for a minute. I mean, I just enjoyed so much about it. One thing I was going to mention, by the way, on the Cofounder, so my partner that helps me run the business, Scott Kegris, here at Riderflex. I mean, it is just so critical if you're going to have a co-founder to just really pick somebody that you enjoy being around as a person. Everybody wants to balance the skill set, right? Like if you're a good ops person, maybe you surround yourself with a good salesperson, or if you're not tech, maybe you're balancing each other out. And that is important. But if you don't like just hanging out, it's not going to work because you're side by side, in the very beginning. So I think that's really critical. And that's why I think Scott and I've been successful at Riderflex building the team out, is because we just enjoy each other's company. And I can call and just talk to them about anything. And that's important. If you had to leave a piece of advice for an aspiring entrepreneur, and again, I know that's like an entire episode, but one or two things you would tell them, just like I mentioned, selecting a good co-founder. Other than that, is there one or two things you would share to anybody out there thinking about starting their business?
I would. So I want to key on the advice specifically, and that is to be wary of advice.
Good one.
So, yeah. I think it's easy. I mean, you were saying that you suspected that over the years, I may have received advice that I should grow the company larger, but I feel like advice comes from people who definitely don't know you as well as you do, or your business. And so you got to be careful about what people say that you should do. what I find has been really helpful for me, and what I would share for your viewers, is to seek out experiences from other people, have them share what their
Mm.
experience has been about a particular topic. So, for instance, we're reviewing our family leave policy, and so I'd love some input on that. So I'm not looking for advice. I don't want somebody to tell me what we should do. I want someone to tell me what they did for their business and what the outcome was.
Mm.
And I think one of the joys of being an entrepreneur is having the opportunity to figure things out for yourself. It's not to say that you do it without input. Asking for those stories from other people is how you get the input. But then I think the fun part is figuring out what makes sense for you, what makes sense for your team, what makes sense for your business based on what you gather.
Mm.
So maybe that's advice in itself, but I think the overarching message is be careful, be wary of people who are too quick to tell you what you should be doing.
Good. That's good stuff. How about this? What advice would you give first-time CEOs? All of a sudden they have 12 employees, kind of like you had, right away. You have 15 employees. You're like, oh shit. Okay. I'm a CEO. I got employees for the first time. Any advice for those folks?
The experience that I didn't get working independently for 12 years was managing people. And so I'm very comfortable with technology. I'm very comfortable with development. I understand what's possible. You know, I stay sharp on the technology side. But what is hard to prepare for is the variety of challenges that you'll face from employees in that role. And they're fantastic. They've stretched me, you know, in ways that were important. They've made me a better person over the years. And when it comes down to it, I mean, my business is our team. What I'm selling is our ability to do something magical for you as a client. And the only way we can do that is with a fantastic team of people. So uh,
Mm-hmm.
my my experience has proven that if you treat that team well, treat them with respect, um, that they'll stick with you and will be excited to support the business. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that I'm most proud about, you're probably familiar with stats related to the industry, given your role in recruiting, but we we in the software development space tend to see a lot of turnover. And at Inspiring Apps, I'm proud to say that we have over 40% of our team has been together for 5 years or more. And
Wow. That's really good.
4 of us have been together for 10 years. So
Impressive.
it's solid. Yeah.
You're right, because people on your staff, I mean, I know you know this already, but the people that do the work for your company, they get called by recruiters all the time.
Yes, they
Hey, by the way, nobody at Riderflex has ever called anybody there, just so you know.
I'm sure.
But yeah, you know, what's going to happen when the day comes where software engineers and developers, they're having a good run right now, right? They're the most high, they're the most in demand job on the planet, pretty much. It won't always be that way. Every time I'm interviewing a super cocky software engineer, I'm always thinking to myself, I'm thinking to myself, you better enjoy this time, because it ain't always going to be like that, buddy. Oh man, you know, managing people is really a special thing, right? And I had a mentor recently. She had a business for 30 years. She is winding down that business now. And I talked to her, and she said, you know, she was sad and everything about having to, you know, shut the business down. And I told her, I said, do you know how many lives you've affected and you've mentored and you've shaped over the last 30 years? I mean, you paid off people's homes because they were employees here. They had bonuses and all. You put their kids through school. You created jobs in the economy and the marketplace. I said, you mentored and fostered relationships. I said, what are you sad about? I mean, you spent 30 years shaping people's lives. I mean, that is really a special thing. And by the way, it means a hell of a lot more than what your most profitable year was.
For sure.
And it's a special thing. And I enjoy the mentoring the people piece and having them on the team. I mean, the tombstones for us aren't going to say, best CEO ever and delivered plus EBITDA in 2020,
Right.
It ain't going to say that. I'm pretty sure. At this stage in your life, if you could call I'm going to call you a jock because you were a jock coming out of high school because you played, you were obviously, you went to college and played some sports.
Right.
So if you could call your 18-year-old jock self and have a conversation with that young man before he went out to Southern California, would you tell him anything today?
Oh my gosh. That goes way back. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have anticipated at the time that I would even be interested in starting a business. The business that I'm in, if it existed, I didn't know about it when I was 18. So that would have been hard for me to imagine. So, if I could say something non-specific, I would just provide some comfort that it's all going to work out.
It's all going to work out. It's all going to be okay. I thought you were going to tell him, listen, when you get out to USC, just party a lot more than I did the first time.
Maybe I was too studious, but
right.
I was not so much into the parties.
By the way, how did you meet your wife? I forgot to ask you.
We met at one of those jobs that I went back to.
Oh, really? Okay. Now, see, there, it was meant to be.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
If the first business had been successful, you never would have met her.
I know. Fantastic.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
Last question. I know we got 5 minutes left. Last question. If you had to put your core purpose in life into a sentence now at this stage in your life, and I asked you to push that outside of your immediate family. So let's just set aside your children and your wife for a second. Let's assume that's number one priority and your core purpose is to be a great dad and all that stuff. Push that aside for a second. What is your professional core purpose in life now today at this age?
Let's see. I have not formulated a purpose statement. So off the top of my head, my purpose is really serving others. And, I talked about Inspiring Apps being a service business. So we serve clients, like I said, we help startups hopefully kickstart their dream, if not realize their dream of forming a business around things that we build for them. I think in order to be successful, it's aided my success, let me say this differently, to enjoy serving other people. And so, I focus on clients first, but the same goes for my employees. And I feel like I'm here to, you touched on many things, to mentor, to support them financially. I get a lot of gratification knowing that kids are going to be able to go to college, based on using the money that their parents saved working in Inspiring Apps, to put them through school. We have at least 2 or 3 employees buying houses now, people getting married.
Love it.
And that's super gratifying. And
love it.
So for what I do, it's critically important that I enjoy serving others and really getting joy from making other people happy.
Now, you know what's going to happen, because you strike me as a pretty analytical guy and a very thoughtful guy. You know what's going to happen this afternoon or this evening. You're going to have this kind of frustrated look on your face, and your wife's going to be like, "What's wrong with you?" And you're going to say, "I'm like 50, I'm mid 50s, and I don't even know I don't have a core purpose statement."
I don't think I need the statement. I feel pretty good about what I'm doing.
Very good. Well, you're obviously making a difference in people's lives, and you're helping companies. And by the way, it's inspiringapps.com, right? Inspiringapps.com. Is that the best way for people to contact you, is just go straight to the website, or do you have any preference on anything else?
No, I think that's great. I mean, you can find us on social media as well, but if you start at the website, you'll find ways to contact us via email or on social media platforms.
Now, my partner Scott, he did tell you for you to be on the podcast that we get like a free app for Riderflex, right? Did you guys talk about that?
Absolutely. If you're not going to go so far as to specify the scope, I could get delivery app this afternoon.
That's pretty good.
It'll be the best app showing the Riderflex logo and nothing else that you've ever seen.
Love it. Brad, thanks for being on the Riderflex podcast. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.